be joined on the phone now by Executive VP and GM Andrew Friedman. John Heyman's going to be along with us as well. But to Andrew, thanks for calling in now from Port Charlotte. And so 5 out of the last 6 years, you guys have won 90 games or more. Just give me an overall impression of where you think this team is heading into 2014 and the work that you guys have done.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. And as we got to spring training, obviously we go through our staff meetings and really talk through, each component and facet of the team. And when we got through it, a lot of our coaches marveled that we had more depth than they think we had in years past. And really, it speaks to, 2 years ago in 2012, when we had the amount of injuries we had. We ended up winning 90 games, but had we had the depth that we think we do right now in 2012, we would have had a much better chance of going to the playoffs. So we like the depth that we have. We like the balance that we have on our roster, and feel like we have a chance to do some pretty special things.
Hey, Andrew, more pressure now or when you first started off?
I think the good thing about playing in the AL East is really we don't have very much pressure. We kind of fly under the radar in a lot of ways, which is good for us. It kind of works within the mentality and dynamic of our group. And, it's something that obviously the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Orioles, the Blue Jays, those teams have had a lot of franchise type success and are extremely relevant and very well respected today. So we kind of fly under the radar and relish that role.
Is it still the best division in baseball?
In my opinion, it's the toughest division in all of professional sports. So,
wow. Yeah. Well, expand on that, because that's big.
Well, I think, especially when you get into the unbalanced schedule, which I don't think people appreciate enough, in that there's a very real chance that all 5 teams in this division win 81 or more games. So for all of us to win 81 or more games, obviously what we'd have to do in interleague and against the other 2 divisions, which are also really good, I think speaks to the depth of this division and the fact that there's really not a team that's scuffling or rebuilding. All 5, you can make a legitimate argument that they could win, 85 to 90 games. And really, when you get into the Boston and New York, they're kind of bellwethers. And every division, it's more cyclical, and certain teams are stronger in certain decades, and it kind of ebbs and flows. But the Yankees and Red Sox are bellwethers. They've been good for a long time. They will continue to be good for a long time, and I think that just raises the bar and the standard in this division. And when you're going about the roster construction process, it sets that bar even higher for us to try to meet, whereas other divisions, it's a little bit lower.
Andrew, you guys went out and grabbed Grant Balfour. What kind of effect do you think he's going to have at the back end of your bullpen?
Well, fortunately, we knew him, and we had him here for a number of years, and so we know how he goes about his work, how he prepares, the kind of fire he brings to the clubhouse, and obviously the success he's had, dating back to 2008 really speaks for itself, but just how well he fits in, the way he goes about it, and kind of the edge I think he'll bring is something that will really help the dynamic of the group.
Andrew, John Heyman here. My question's about David Price. I know a lot of us are surprised you guys were able to bring the Price back, making $13 million now. The payroll's up to $80 million or close to it. I applaud Stu Sternberg for that. Certainly a lot more than you've ever had to work with before. But going forward, what do you think the chances are that you could keep Price beyond this year? And are you surprised at all that you ended up keeping him?
Well, there were a lot of questions in there, but I think with David, the impact that he's had both on and off the field for us does not go unnoticed. And Mark Topkin wrote about it yesterday, but we had a bunch of our guys throwing live BPs, and David had thrown the day before, so he was his group was allowed to go in and kind of get showered up and have an earlier day. Well, David stood out there and watched other guys throw their live BPs, went and helped guys pick up the balls after. So he's a big part of what we do, and obviously, looking out into the horizon is really difficult to forecast. I think, in our situation, it's obviously more difficult to retain him long term than it would be other places, but our mindset is to enjoy each and every day that we have David here and do everything in our power to continue that relationship, understanding and appreciating kind of our limitations, and there's obviously a lot that goes into that.
Hey, Andrew, knowing your limitations and knowing what you did with James Shields and the trade you made with Kansas City, how far out were you preparing with Shields, and are you already, you have to prepare maybe to move David, so you're already out there putting that package together? Are those thoughts in your mind?
No, I don't think specifically. I think the biggest thing for us is we just can't really have any hard and fast rules about anything. And so we have to be really prepared and nimble. And so the more prepared you are, the easier it is for you to react more quickly when things pop up. And that's what we have to do, is to remain very fluid and not ever get into a situation where we have to make a certain move, but continue to kind of assess the market and figure out when things kind of line up in our time horizon of what makes the most sense for us to have the best chance possible to sustain success.
Let me ask you, Andrew, about a couple of changes that we're going to see coming up in 2014. We know we're going to see replay, and in all likelihood, we're going to see some sort of effect on home plate collisions. And I know that the Rays were one of about the 5 or 6 teams that Joe Torre met with over the weekend discussing both of those aspects. Just what are your thoughts about how you think they're going to be implemented, both replay and the collisions?
Well, first off, I think change in the industry is good when it's really well thought out and done for the right reasons and not just change for the sake of change. With replay, I think we've gotten to a point with technology where we can implement it in a way that doesn't delay the pace of game. That was the thing that I was probably most concerned with, and I think we've gotten to a point, and the guys at MLB have done a tremendous job of really thinking through every aspect. And we kind of came into the meeting yesterday with, okay, how are we going to stump them? Let's ask certain questions to figure out if there's ways to kind of game it. And they've really thought through everything and are putting in and implementing a system that I think is not only not going to delay the pace of game, but actually make it a little bit faster. And instead of the long, drawn-out arguments with managers and umpires, it will be shorter in that they'll actually have the ability to either get the call right or wrong, or correct it if it's wrong, which will only help in that, we all put so much into this, and to have the results on the field dictate who wins and loses is obviously imperative, and to be able to get those calls right, only really helps. And on the plays at the plate, I was against it initially when it was brought up, but the more and more I've thought about it, the more and more I get it, in that the awareness that we now have for concussions and brain trauma is something that I think, has changed the way you have to view that play. And so I sympathize with the concept and the idea of changing it. The only thing I want us to be very mindful of is not changing it in a way that we protect the catchers but then put the runners at more risk and more jeopardy. And so I'd be interested to see the rule when it comes out, and to make sure that, collectively we feel like our runners aren't at a disadvantage now.
All right, great stuff from Andrew Friedman, the Rays GM and Executive VP. Andrew, thanks for calling in, and the best of luck to the Rays coming up in 2014. I'm sure we'll be talking to you down the road.